On December 5th of 2022, my life was ruined forever. I made an account just to leave a review on this. I hope Ronnie Radke is tormented eternally for what he's done. When I first started work on this video, I decided to listen to and annotate Falling in Reverse's 2013 LP Fashionably Late from start to finish. I made it to track 3 before I quit. Bad vocals and weird production choices already. Lyrics are still I am glad? What the fuck? Switching between death metal and pop punk is horrendous. Stop. God, please. Stop. Fuck off. To start off with a good representation of this album, track 3, Rolling Stone, is likely the worst song I've ever heard in my entire life. With every bad piece of music, there are some redeeming qualities, even if those qualities are laughability or absurdity. That is not so with Rolling Stone. I don't have a complicated point to make about this album, I just want to complain about how horrendous this album is because I can't get any other worth out of having listened to it. So, why do I think this album is a 0 out of 10? Well, my answer is simple. It's loud and irritating without actually making any unique choices other than some terrible genre combinations. Because of this, it's both insanely annoying while being extremely unoriginal. Most of the flaws can be traced back to the lyrics and the vocals done by the band's frontman, Ronnie. On May 6, 2006, 22-year-old Ronnie Radke was involved in a murder. After paying a fine of about $90,000, he violated his probation, getting sentenced to a little over 2 years in prison, where he would write the first material for the band Falling in Reverse. In 2012, 2 years after being released, he was accused of abusing his girlfriend and failed to show up to court. 1 year later, Radke's band released their album Fashionably Late, and in 2 more years he'd be accused of sexual assault. I forgot about that line. Why? Yeah. You can hear the popping where they're like splitting the. There's plenty more great lyrics where that came from. On things like verse 3 of Rolling Stone, every single line seems to be crafted to be the worst it can possibly be. Actually says spiritual lyrical. This is why people complain about white rappers. It's not about their skin tone, it's the fact they do this. In layman's terms, I am the best. You must agree, I got that white boy swagger rapping right down to a T. This is exactly what I'm talking about. I don't have any insightful commentary beyond this point because it really lays itself out like this. After the worst bars you've ever heard, he says, I am the best. And he even adds in the little in layman's terms, as if the previous section was just too quick to be understood because he's just that good. He then unironically says he has white boy swagger. Here's what's next. I got my hand up on the throttle, holding up a broken bottle, ready to cut you up and gut you like a fucking avocado. Before using an avocado, you must take out the pit, or the huge seed thing in the middle. Ronnie will use the figurative bottle he just picked up to figuratively cut out your gut as if you were an avocado. Oh, that's bingo. After that, we have some meaningless garbage, and then this line. Brilliant. Yeah, that's the level we're on. Okay, so we've listened to less than 1% of this album, so imagine that times a little over 100. That's this album. Not the worst thing on earth when tracks are isolated and dissected, but nearly an hour straight is entirely unlistenable and completely miserable. The main reason they're able to get away with this is because their entire listener base is just listening to individual songs. Footnote, there's nothing wrong with listening to just songs, but this is an album and not a mixtape or a collection of singles. Don't get me wrong, the tracks on their own are still like 3 or 4 out of 10 maximum, but when put together, it saps everything out of me. This album also has a downright disgusting attitude. Tracks like Champion and of course Rolling Stone are so triumphant and mighty in tone while being the weakest, most childish garbage on the planet. I think this idea is rotten to the core. The idea that Ronnie Radke has overcome adversity and he's currently at the top of a mountain with this album. This album that's just an annoying misogynist whining and screaming over mostly ear-piercing songs that occasionally relent by shedding the vocals. It's almost impossible to communicate what's wrong with this album just with a clip or a song. There's the obvious bits like it sounding terrible and having terrible lyrics, but a single drop does not a water torture make. I love long music, my favorite albums are long as hell, but this is probably the longest album I've ever listened to in my life, right next to Because the Internet by Childish Gambino. I think I'd need to meet a person who's listened to this whole album from start to finish and enjoyed it to understand their perspective. Well, I was going to interview someone, but they forgot or something, I don't know. Look, this video has just been a confusing rant so far, but you have to believe me, this is the worst thing ever. I think I could endlessly dissect various terrible pieces of this album in like a 20-hour video, but that's a miserable idea. And I want to be done making this video, so I am done making this video. It's over. Goodbye, I gave up.